I am a coach and an alum of Girls on the Run. Kids today carry a lot of stress, from school pressure to social isolation to overuse of devices. We create a space where girls can connect, build confidence, and learn skills like managing emotions, setting goals, and speaking up. Each child's experience is different, and families need support. I'm proud to be part of a comprehensive solution to youth mental health. Get involved today at empowerourfuturecoalition.com.
Hey, I'm Jamie East, and today's episode of The Smart 7 is brought to you by Sainsbury's, where you can save big on festive favourites with Nectar prices. With Christmas just around the corner, it's more important than ever to find value for money on your festive shop. And if you want to be the host or hostess with the mostess, you need Christmas magic from Sainsbury's. That means great discounts to make your festive season truly magical. For example, this week you can get 3 for 2 on all Sainsbury's party food with Nectar prices, including taste the difference treats like 8 mini Wagyu beef cheeseburgers, 8 crispy chicken bayo buns, or 12 crispy mushroom tartlets. You can shop in-store or online and save big on festive favourites this Christmas with Nectar prices at Sainsbury's. That's good food for all of us. This offer's for 18 plus, terms and conditions apply. Offer ends 31st of December, 3 for 2 on all Sainsbury's party food, cheapest product free. Nectar required, available in-store and online, excluding locals. Delivery fees may apply and subject to availability.
It's Friday, the 26th of December. I'm Trish Laverty, and today's episode is part of the Smart 7's review of 2025. Today we're looking at the biggest stories from March and April when Donald Trump startled Vladimir Zelensky, a classified group chat went global, Rory McIlroy made history, the world mourned Pope Francis.
Grab a cup of something hot, put up your feet, and get up to speed on the 7 biggest stories of the week. This is the Standout 7 from the Smart 7.
It's news,
but not the news.
The first months of Donald Trump's second presidency were filled with action and drama, with the president dramatically signing leather-bound executive orders on an almost daily basis and entertaining the press in the Oval Office. He also entertained various world leaders, including Keir Starmer, but it was the visit of Ukrainian President Zelensky at the end of February that created a moment that echoed around the world. Live on TV, Donald Trump and J.D. Vance ganged up on the Ukrainian president in the Oval Office.
You're gambling with World War III, and what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country.
The moment, which seemed to go on forever, was sparked by Vance, who insisted that Zelensky wasn't sufficiently grateful for American aid and spiralled out of control quickly. Zelensky left without any lunch and without signing the much-discussed rare earth mineral deal. He did, however, stop by Fox News to make his case to the American public.
I respect the President and I respect American people, and I think that we have to be very open and very honest, and I'm not sure that we did something bad. The
fiasco sparked an immediate reaction from world leaders who tweeted and messaged their support for Ukraine. Zelensky headed to the UK, where Prime Minister Keir Starmer had convened a summit of leaders to pull together a new alliance to support Ukraine, and he committed new funding to buy air defence missiles and announced that the UK and France would lead a coalition of the willing to help Ukraine.
The UK is prepared to back this, with boots on the ground and planes in the air, together with others. Europe must do the heavy lifting.
Trump was also busy waging his own war on the world as he implemented tariffs to address what he called other nations ripping off the United States. Early March saw new tariffs on China, Canada and Mexico kick in and got an almost universal negative reaction. The markets tumbled as fears over a global trade war escalated, and China and Canada quickly reciprocated with tariffs of their own. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum has also promised a response. Trump's Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick had been hinting that a compromise of some kind is possible, but Canadian PM Justin Trudeau was a lot more direct.
Now, it's not in my habit to agree with the Wall Street Journal, but Donald, they point out that even though you're a very smart guy, this is a very dumb thing to do. We two friends fighting is exactly what our opponents around the world want.
Trump, of course, responded during his address to Congress on Tuesday evening. He boasted that America is back and pledged to continue with his programme, which he said will usher in the golden age of America. He didn't appear to be in a mood to back down on tariffs this time either.
Tariffs are about making America rich again and making America great again, and it's happening, and it will happen rather quickly. There'll be a little disturbance, but we're okay with that.
Late March saw the long-awaited phone call between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin as Trump made the case for a 30-day ceasefire. There were two very different views of how the call went, with the White House describing a positive call in which Putin agreed to a ceasefire on attacks on energy infrastructure and that talks would begin on Sunday in the Middle East on a path to full and permanent peace. For Putin, however, that didn't seem to be the case, as almost immediately after the call, drone and missiles were launched at Kyiv, and he made clear that any ceasefire would have to mean a total ban on military aid for Ukraine from any source. Zelensky responded, annoyed by a comment from military analyst Michael Clark on Sky News that said if Ukraine weren't at the table, they were on the menu.
I don't want us to be on Putin's menu. We are not salads, we are not compote for this man, despite his appetite. We see what he is like and that's it. We are an independent state.
The end of March saw the US and Ukraine hold talks in Riyadh as the work of agreeing a ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine got underway. Donald Trump's envoy Steve Witkoff has had a number of meetings with Vladimir Putin and is showing concerning signs of falling under the Russian leader's smell. He waxed lyrical over the weekend about a painting that Putin had sent to Trump, and he certainly doesn't seem to be blaming Putin for starting the war in the first place.
In my 68 years on this earth, I've never, ever seen a situation where there isn't two sides to a story. So there are grievances on both sides, but our job is to narrow the issues, bring the parties together, and stop the killing.
Tuesday, though, brought what appeared to be good news as the US announced a deal had been reached for a partial ceasefire. The announcement followed separate talks with the US and Ukraine, followed by talks between the US and Russia, and all sides issued statements which would eliminate the use of force in the Black Sea. Russian Foreign Secretary Lavrov sounded pleased with the outcome.
I think our American partners have heard this signal. They understand that Washington alone can achieve positive results in stopping terrorist attacks, stopping the shelling of civilian infrastructure not connected with the military-industrial complex.
April saw the US president dramatically up the stakes in his one-man tariff war on the world. Trump took to the White House lawn armed with a series of giant charts as he set out to create what he called one of the most important days in American history. He launched a series of tariffs, 25% on all foreign cars and a universal tariff of 10% on almost all countries sending goods to the United States. Some countries attracted much higher tariffs, including Bangladesh and Vietnam, while China got landed with a 34% tariff, which appeared to be added on to the previous 20%, but intriguingly there were no tariffs placed on Russia. The US president warned that there would be a strong reaction to the move.
In the coming days there will be complaints from the globalists and the outsourcers and special interests and the fake news. The fake news will always complain. But never forget, every prediction our opponents made about trade for the last 30 years has been proven totally wrong.
The UK only attracted the minimum 10% tariff, and some categories such as pharmaceuticals got exemptions in the current round. That will be seen as a small victory for Labour and Keir Starmer, who'd been working hard to build a relationship with Trump and his team. Chancellor Rachel Reeves was promising a considered response to the new tariffs.
The prize on offer is an economic agreement. We don't want to do anything that undermines that. We don't want to get ahead of ourselves. We are still in discussions with our counterparts in the United States, and the focus is not on posturing here.
Stock markets tumbled on Thursday as the aftermath of Donald Trump's Liberation Day caused shockwaves around the world. As Trump predicted, there was outrage and alarm from world leaders as the US announced almost universal tariffs against friendly and not so friendly nations. Trump says it will usher in a golden age for America, but with $2 trillion wiped off the value of Wall Street stocks and the dollar sliding against the euro, it looks like a high-risk strategy. The EU has had a 20% tariff imposed, which will mean more disruption between Ireland and Northern Ireland, and Irish Taoiseach Micheál Martin didn't sound too happy about Trump's trade war.
I deeply regret the United States' decision to impose 20% tariffs on imports from across the European Union. Disrupting this deeply integrated relationship benefits no one.
There was a dramatic scoop from editor of The Atlantic, Jeffrey Goldberg, at the end of March. He revealed that bizarrely he'd been added to a White House group chat on Signal that laid out the arguments for a major strike on the Houthi rebels. The group, which appeared to include Trump advisor Mick Waltz, Defence Secretary Hegseth, the Director of National Intelligence and the head of the CIA, didn't seem to realise someone had added a journalist. Goldberg got details of the planned attack and saw a debate over policy between VP Vance and White House advisor Stephen Miller before he left the group. Hegseth since denied texting actual war plans, but Goldberg responded on CNN.
No, that's a lie. He was texting war plans. He was texting attack plans. When targets were going to be targeted, when the next sequence of attacks were happening. I didn't publish this, and I continue not to publish it because it felt like it was too confidential.
Using Signal for top-secret military discussions appears to be a breach of the Espionage Act, and former Naval Reserve officer and Secretary of Transport in the Biden administration, Pete Buttigieg, was furious.
As if they're not highly serious consequences for this level of screw-up, then it will make clear that all of the bluster about merit that you hear about from this White House is just bullshit.
The Signalgate drama inspired a million memes about the Trump's team top secret group chat. Tuesday saw Hegseth in Hawaii trying to shrug off the embarrassment, but other members of the insecure chat group found themselves in front of a Senate hearing, including CIA Director John Ratcliffe and Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard. It was a bruising experience, as this statement from Senator Mark Warner, the Vice Chairman of the Intelligence Committee, demonstrated.
This was not only sloppy, it not only violated all procedures, but if this information had gotten out, American lives could have been lost.
There have been calls for those involved to resign or be fired, and even Fox News seemed appalled by the screw-up. Wednesday saw The Atlantic magazine release the detailed attack plans that were revealed in the not-so-secret Signal group by US Defence Secretary Pete Hegseth. The Trump administration tried to argue that there's a difference between attack plans and war plans, but the scandal showed no sign of dying down. Donald Trump weighed in with an opinion on the editor of The Atlantic at the centre of the story.
Goldberg's a loser. His magazine's a big loser. There was no classified information. There was no problem, and the attack was a tremendous success.
The last week of March saw Chancellor Reeves warming up to deliver her spring statement, and in media appearances her focus was on avoiding tax cuts, instead planning for job cuts in the civil service, which may impact 10,000 people and an overall reduction in budget of 15%. She said it's time for a more business-minded approach to government and increased use of tools such as AI.
We are, by the end of this Parliament, making a commitment that we will cut the costs of running government by 15%. And I think anyone running a business will think that that is more than possible.
We were expecting to hear more about the famous Tory black hole in the finances, but the Chancellor was keen to kill off one rumoured cut.
I don't recognise those claims that the government are looking at means testing free school meals. In fact, this government are ensuring that all children get a good start to the day with a breakfast club and helping all children get a good start in life.
Former Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn wasn't much looking forward to the speech.
The Labour Party in government is an enormous disappointment. I never thought I'd hear the day when a Chancellor would get up and say they're taking £5 billion out of the income of the very poorest disabled people in our society. It is a disgrace.
Reeves confirmed welfare cuts of £4.8 billion in her spring statement on Wednesday. That's set to affect about 3 million households, which could lose almost £2,000 a year in benefit payments. Wednesday did see the inflation number drop, and Reeves pledged to keep driving growth in the economy and a crackdown on tax evaders.
This statement does not contain any further tax increases. But when working people are paying their taxes while still struggling with the cost of living, it cannot be right that others are still evading what they rightly owe in tax.
The Office of Budgetary Responsibility was warning that with growth projections at just 1% and the potential for Trump's tariff war, the picture is still grim. Paul Johnson of the Institute for Fiscal Studies says there's still a risk that taxes could rise before the year is out.
I don't think this statement will make anyone feel any better off. It will make a small number of people feel quite a lot worse off. I think what it risks is setting up some more tax rises come the autumn.
Judges at the UK Supreme Court unanimously ruled in mid-April that a woman is defined by biological sex under the UK's 2010 Equality Act. Lord Patrick Hodge, the presiding judge, was clear in his ruling that the definition was a specific and limited case after a years-long legal wrangle over the meaning in the 2010 Act.
The unanimous decision is that the terms woman and sex in the Equality Act refer to a biological woman and biological sex. But we counsel against reading this judgment as a triumph of one or more groups in our society. It is not.
His call for restraint over the judgment appears to have gone largely unheard, and he was also clear that the Equality Act continues to give transgender people protection against discrimination. The reaction from campaign groups such as For Women Scotland, who brought the case, was one of celebration, and author J.K. Rowling praised them for taking action to protect the rights of women and girls. The ruling was met with dismay by trans rights groups who fear it will lead to real misery for an already marginalised group, as campaigner Heather Herbert explained.
Trans people are very scared about what's going on. We can see how things have progressed in America. We can see how the attacks on trans people have left people. It's frightening.
The Equality and Human Rights Commission moved to introduce new guidelines on single-sex spaces after the court ruling which found a woman is defined by her biological sex under the Equality Act. The NHS is amongst the public bodies who are now working on updated guidance, and the chair of the commission says it's clear that the concept of single-sex spaces would need to be addressed, suggesting that trans people should advocate for new facilities. She was also clear that trans people need to be valued and considered in any change.
It's a victory for common sense, but only if you recognise that trans people exist and their rights must be respected. It's not a victory for an increase in unpleasant actions against trans people. We will not tolerate that.
Tory leader Kemi Badenoch says that laws do need to be updated, but only to prevent discrimination and not for social engineering. Health Minister Karen Smith says the government will take a considered view of the finding.
We are not interested in so-called culture wars. We believe that everybody should have their dignity and privacy and their rights respected. We're very proud of the Gender Recognition Act that we introduced. I think now is the time to make sure we look to the future.
The beginning of March marked the end of the first phase of the ceasefire in Gaza, with phase 2 expected to see Israeli troops withdraw and a further phased release of hostages by Hamas. However, Israel moved swiftly to block any aid flowing into Gaza unless Hamas accepted a new plan put forward by Donald Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff. The plan called for an extension of phase 1 and a continued release of hostages until after Ramadan and Passover in mid-April. There would also be no further Israeli troop withdrawals. Hamas's refusal to entertain the proposal sparked Israeli PM Netanyahu into a blockade of aid.
In light of Hamas's rejection of the Witkoff outline, we have decided to prevent any entry of goods and supplies into Gaza. If Hamas continues to entrench itself in its position and does not release our hostages, there will be further consequences.
Monday saw widespread international condemnation of the move, which included UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres and UK PM Keir Starmer.
The decision to block aid into Gaza is completely wrong and should not be supported in this House. On the contrary, what we need is more aid going into Gaza, desperately needed aid at speed and at volume.
Israeli PM Netanyahu was warning that the blockade of aid and Israeli airstrikes were just the beginning and that any negotiations will be under fire.
I told you many times that if Hamas will continue to refuse, if it will not release our hostages, we will go back to fighting. And indeed, we have gone back to fighting.
Meanwhile, it appears that Israel is intending to seize the entire city of Rafah as part of the new plan to create another security corridor through Gaza. With no progress on a ceasefire and no let-up in the Israeli blockade on aid, French President Emmanuel Macron decided to push for more action at the UN in June. He's proposing recognising Palestine as a state in line with France's long-term support of a two-state solution for the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. He will meet with Saudi Arabian negotiators and plans to co-chair the New York conference.
We are fighting for Gaza, for peace, for the return of security, for aid, and for a political solution. We need to go down the path of recognition, and that's what we'll do in the coming months.
Still to come on the Standout 7, in association with Metro, Rory McIlroy finally achieves his dream, and we pay tribute to Pope Francis.
Right after this.
Hey, I'm Jamie East, and today's episode of the Smart 7 is brought to you by Sainsbury's, where you can save big on festive favourites with Nectar prices. With Christmas just around the corner, it's more important than ever to find value for money on your festive shop. And if you want to be the host or hostess with the mostess, you need Christmas magic from Sainsbury's. That means great discounts to make your festive season truly magical. For example, this week you can get 3 for 2 on all Sainsbury's party food with Nectar prices, including taste the difference treats like 8 mini Wagyu beef cheeseburgers, 8 crispy chicken bayo buns, or 12 crispy mushroom tartlets. You can shop in-store or online and save big on festive favourites this Christmas with Nectar prices at Sainsbury's. That's good food for all of us. This offer's for 18 plus, terms and conditions apply. Offer ends 31st of December, 3 for 2 on all Sainsbury's party food, cheapest product free. Nectar required, available in-store and online, excluding locals. Delivery fees may apply and subject to availability.
I am a coach and an alum of Girls on the Run. Kids today carry a lot of stress, from school pressure to social isolation to overuse of devices. We create a space where girls can connect, build confidence, and learn skills like managing emotions, setting goals, and speaking up. Each child's experience is different, and families need support. I'm proud to be part of a comprehensive solution to youth mental health. Get involved today at empowerourfuturecoalition.com.
Welcome back.
Mid-April saw history made at the US Masters in Augusta. Northern Ireland's Rory McIlroy finally won himself a green jacket after 14 years of trying, and he sounded mainly relieved that he won't have to face the same questions he's been getting since 2011 at next year's press conference.
I'd like to start this press conference with a question myself. What are we all going to talk about next year?
His path to victory wasn't straightforward. He started at 12 under on Sunday, but struggled to stay on track, while England's Justin Rose made a run for glory. The two players were deadlocked after 18 holes, and so it went to a playoff, which McIlroy kept his nerve to win. That makes him one of just 6 players, including Tiger Woods, who's managed a career Grand Slam, and he was sounding suitably grateful for the chance to be part of Masters history.
I've literally made my dreams come true today, and I would say to every boy and girl listening to this that, you know, believe in your dreams, and if you work hard enough and you put the effort in, that you can achieve anything you want.
Awards season continued in the first week of March with the Brits on Saturday and the Oscars on Sunday. Sabrina Carpenter pretty much stole the show at the Brits in London with an over-the-top routine involving dancers dressed as Royal Guardsmen. And that wasn't the only dramatic moment to get Ofcom phone lines hopping. Danny Dyer was busy swearing, Charlie XCX wore a see-through top, and one of Jade's dancers mooned the camera. In other words, a traditional Brit Awards. Host Jack Whitehall was back, and there were prizes for Chapel Roan, Fontaine's DC, Stormzy, and Sabrina picked up a Global Success Award. But the night belonged to Charlie XCX, who picked up 5 trophies in total, including Best Album.
I've always felt like an outsider, kind of particularly in the British music industry. And so it feels really nice to be recognised.
Sunday night saw the 97th Academy Awards take place at the Dolby Theatre in Los Angeles. Conan O'Brien was this year's host, replacing 4-time host Jimmy Kimmel, and he even did a song and dance number. A lot of the big categories looked predictable, with Kieran Culkin, Zoe Saldana and Demi Moore all coming in as favourites, but that's not how it turned out. Low-budget comedy Anora, which sees a sex worker stand up to a Russian oligarch, won 5 awards, including Best Actress for Mikey Madison, along with Best Picture, Director, Editing and Original Screenplay, making creator Sean Baker only the second person to win 4 Oscars in one night. The other person, Walt Disney. Culkin and Saldana both won their categories, and Adrian Brody won Best Actor for The Brutalist, his second award, 22 years after his first win for The Pianist.
I pray for a healthier and a happier and a more inclusive world, and I believe if the past can teach us anything, it's a reminder to not let hate go unchecked.
King Charles and Queen Camilla were in Italy in April celebrating 20 years of marriage. They got a private audience with Pope Francis at the Vatican and pronounced themselves delighted that the pontiff was well enough to meet them after his recent battle with illness. Wednesday night saw a formal state banquet in their honour after King Charles became the first UK monarch to address both houses of the Italian Parliament. He used his speech to call for democracies such as the UK and Italy to stand together in these troubled times, but he also had time for a quick Roman Empire joke.
Our ties go back over 2 millennia to those ancient Roman visitors who arrived on our windswept shores. It was the Romans who gave Britons the idea of putting a king's head on coins. So I'm especially grateful to them.
Not long after that, on Easter Monday morning, we saw an announcement from the Vatican.
Carissimi fratelli et sorelle.
Dear brothers and sisters, with deep sorrow I must announce the death of our Holy Father Francis. At 7:35 this morning, the Bishop of Rome, Francis, returned to the house of the Father. His entire life was dedicated to the service of the Lord and his church.
They confirmed that Pope Francis had died from a stroke and irreversible heart failure after falling into a coma on Sunday. The 88-year-old, who had served as Pope since 2013, was the first Jesuit Pope and made it his mission to speak for the world's poor. There were tributes from world leaders, including King Charles, along with Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni and US President Trump. Just the previous day, after being ill for some time, the Pope faced a packed Easter Sunday schedule, meeting with US VP J.D. Vance and using his last Easter address to speak on behalf of civilians in Gaza. His message was read by Cardinal Angelo Comastri.
I think of the people of Gaza and its Christian community in particular. I appeal to the warring parties. Call a ceasefire, release the hostages, and come to the aid of a starving people that aspires to a future of peace.
Details for the funeral of Pope Francis revealed that, as in life, he intended to break with tradition and avoid the traditional ceremonial trappings of the office. Firstly, he's to be buried outside of the Vatican in a basilica in Rome's Esquinillo neighbourhood and without any particular decoration. He'd also selected a simple wooden coffin rather than the traditional elaborate triple coffin, and his body will not be displayed on a platform in the church. Guests at Saturday's funeral will include Keir Starmer, Prince William, Italian PM and Argentinian President Javier Milei. Reuters Vatican correspondent Joshua McElway explains what happens next.
Sometime Wednesday morning, we expect that mourners will be able to come into the Basilica to visit with Pope Francis, to say their goodbyes. We expect that world leaders coming for the papal funeral, including U.S. President Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, will be seated in the front row or towards the front of the funeral in St. Peter's Square on Saturday morning.
Thousands of people queued in St. Peter's Square in Rome on Wednesday for their chance to file past the pontiff's coffin. He lay in traditional vestments as over 100 cardinals met in Rome to agree a 9-day mourning period for Pope Francis, which means the conclave to decide his successor won't begin until at least the 5th of May. US Vice President J.D. Vance, among the last to see the pontiff alive, has been brutally mocked online ever since, but speaking to the press on his return from India, he says he didn't realise how ill the Pope was.
Obviously, when I saw him, I didn't know that he had less than 24 hours still on this earth. I think it was a great blessing. He affected a lot of lives, and I try to just, remember that I was lucky that I got to shake his hand and tell him that I pray for him every day.
You've been listening to The Smart 7. We'll be back tomorrow at 7 a.m. Hit that follow button and have a great day. Give us 7 minutes, we'll give you the world. Hey, I'm Jamie East, and today's episode of The Smart 7 is brought to you by Sainsbury's, where you can save big on festive favourites with nectar prices. With Christmas just around the corner, it's more important than ever to find value for money on your festive shop. And if you want to be the host or hostess with the mostess, you need Christmas magic from Sainsbury's. That means great discounts to make your festive season truly magical. For example, this week you can get 3 for 2 on all Sainsbury's party food with nectar prices, including taste the difference treats like 8 mini Wagyu beef cheeseburgers, 8 crispy chicken bayo buns, or 12 crispy mushroom tartlets. You can shop in-store or online and save big on festive favourites this Christmas with nectar prices at Sainsbury's. That's good food for all of us. This offer's for 18 plus, terms and conditions apply. Offer ends 31st of December, 3 for 2 on all Sainsbury's party food, cheapest product free. Nectar required, available in-store and online, excluding locals. Delivery fees may apply and subject to availability.
I am a coach and an alum of Girls on the Run. Kids today carry a lot of stress, from school pressure to social isolation to overuse of devices. We create a space where girls can connect, build confidence, and learn skills like managing emotions, setting goals, and speaking up. Each child's experience is different, and families need support. I'm proud to be part of a comprehensive solution to youth mental health. Get involved today at EmpowerOurFutureCoalition.com.